Okay, it's 4:30. So I will call our meeting of the committee of the whole to order. And I'll first acknowledge that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation. And notice to attendees that the meeting is being video recorded and will be published on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. Notice to virtual attendees to sign up for public comment and question period using the Q&A function in Zoom. Registered participants are required to enter their full name, residential address, and the agenda item they wish to speak. And I will move the meeting location recommendation that pursuant to section 15 of the District of Tofino meeting procedure bylaw number 1229, 2016 as amended, the March 3rd, 2026 committee of the whole meeting be electronically via Zoom and live broadcasted on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel, and that the facility provided for the public to watch and hear the meeting be located at Clapwood Sound Theatre, 380 Campbell Street in Tofino, BC. If there's no objections, that will be carried by unanimous consent. Seeing none, that is carried. Also look for unanimous consent on adoption of the agenda. And I'll move that the March 3rd, 2026 committee of the whole agenda be adopted. And seeing no objections, that is adopted. And we have the adoption of the minutes. The 2026 January 27th committee of the whole. And I'll move that the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held January 27th, 2026 be adopted. And seeing no objection, those are adopted. And we now go to public comment on agenda items, and I'll look to Ms. Hepner for make an open call.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I will now make an open call for comments. For those in the gallery who wish to speak, please raise your hand. If there is anyone attending online via Zoom that would like to make a comment, you can do so now using the Q&A function. Before making a comment, you will need to state your name, your address, and the agenda item you are speaking to. I will now do a call. Calling once. Calling twice. Calling 3 times. There are no comments at this time, Councillor Anderson.
Okay. Well, that takes us right down to item 8.1, local government development approval funding program. And this is the part of the zoning bylaw review project. And we have a verbal report from community service, Mr. Welsh. Yeah.
Evening. Council, community hall. I do not have a slide deck for you tonight. Essentially, there is a funding opportunity with the province to help us initiate various aspects of the zoning bylaw review that is a council priority. This funding opportunity would enable us to tackle a large part, if not all, of the housekeeping amendments that have been mulled over the last year or so. And so this is simply a request to give us the green light to go after that funding opportunity. This doesn't guarantee we'll receive the funding, but it'll be upwards of $200,000 could be received by a municipality, but I don't believe we need more than 100,000. So that's what that motion is requesting.
Okay. Any questions on that? Never question possible money coming. Okay. Does anyone care to read the recommendation? Or
I can read it if you want.
Okay.
I move that council supports the zoning bylaw review project and authorizes staff to apply to the local government development approvals program for a $100,000 grant and to provide overall grant management, including meeting all program, financial, and reporting obligations.
Counselor Thomas. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Carried. And next item is item 8.2, community alcohol strategy, and we have a verbal report from corporate services. Larson. Okay.
Hello, good evening, Chair and Council. Today I'll be providing an update on the district's work alongside Island Health, First Nations leaders, and other public health service providers to improve alcohol-related health and safety within our communities. As part of the presentation, I'll include a history of Tofino's municipal alcohol policy and our progress towards the development of a community alcohol strategy. What began as Council's direction to improve safety and events on municipal property has evolved into a community-wide initiative to reduce alcohol-related harms and support a healthier, more inclusive community. So as a bit of an overview throughout the presentation today, I'll start with a brief background on work to date, followed by an overview of what a community alcohol strategy is and why it's important to Tofino. We'll go through the research and policy review that's informing this work, along with the community consultation and engagement underway and planned for 2026. Finally, I'll outline the next steps throughout the development of this community-led strategy. So to start us off with a bit of a background, over the past several years, Tofino's taken several key steps to set the stage for developing a community alcohol strategy. In 2021, the district adopted a municipal alcohol policy to manage alcohol use at public events and on public facilities. Council has also limited new liquor outlets and supported measures to reduce alcohol-related harms, including recent purchase restrictions at the BC Liquor Store. Health partners have long identified alcohol as a top local concern, leading to earlier needs assessment work. So together, these actions highlighted the need for a more comprehensive community-wide strategy moving forward. Then, in early 2005, Council directed staff to explore a community alcohol strategy following a notice of motion from Councillor Steer. And with Island Health's strong support, the district secured a BC Healthy Communities grant of $15,000 to fund early research and planning. The Community Alcohol Steering Committee launched later that year, so at the end of 2025, and work is now underway to shape the consultation framework and the project deliverables. So what is a community alcohol strategy? While many BC communities have developed and adopted municipal alcohol policies that really highlight restrictions or conditions on alcohol use on municipal property and at municipal events or events on municipal property, there are a few communities that have developed a more broader community-led community alcohol strategy. So a community alcohol strategy is something that brings together the local government, health partners, First Nations, residents, businesses, and service providers to address things like alcohol availability, safety, prevention, education, social norms, and long-term health impacts of alcohol use. A community alcohol strategy uses evidence-based tools to create healthier environments, support responsible use, and strengthen social connection without making alcohol the primary focus. It can also shift norms, improve safety, expand alcohol-free options, and guide policy in areas like events, licensing, land use, and retail. So this project is the first step. It's a preliminary engagement and planning process. That was the scope of the grant that we received to engage residents, First Nations, youth, businesses, and service providers to understand local concerns, how alcohol fits into the landscape socially in Tofino, and what some opportunities could be. So the outcome will be a community-informed framework and roadmap to guide a potential full strategy in the future. So in December of 2025, at the end of last year, a community alcohol steering committee was struck. To support the strategy, a group of representatives from the sort of different organizations that you see on the screen were brought together. And it held its inaugural meeting December 8th. So this is bringing together leaders from local governments, First Nations governments, protective services, public health services, island health, and people who work with those that have personal lived experience with alcohol use. The committee aims to provide guidance, local knowledge, and community perspectives throughout the project, and together hopes to ensure the strategy is grounded in collaboration, equity, and real community needs. So as a part of this process, the development of a strategy framework will be informed by a comprehensive review of local data, existing municipal bylaws, provincial licensing structures, alongside research on effective alcohol policies from other rural and tourism-based communities. The work will include analyzing local health and safety indicators, mapping alcohol availability, and reviewing the district zoning, business licensing, and event-related regulations. The project leads and the steering committee are also studying successful strategies from comparable BC communities to identify evidence-based approaches that reduce harms while supporting community well-being. So admittedly, there are limited strategies, community alcohol strategies available or that have been enacted across BC. However, there are some, and Tofino is looking for a sort of made in Tofino approach that will work for our communities and our neighboring communities. And the research aims to ensure that the strategy is informed by the local realities, best practices, and proven policy tools. So this grant was for this community engagement and research planning process. And so that is really the meat and potatoes of the work that's being done this year. So that grant, the grant wraps up in September of 2026 with a final report due in October. And so all of this work will be completed by then. And this is a bit of a snapshot of sort of who we're including or targeting in the engagement and how we're planning on engaging. So while the strategy will ultimately benefit the entire community, the preliminary phase is focusing on those groups that are most directly affected by alcohol use. So that includes youth and young adults, people working in the hospitality and tourism industry, health and social service providers who regularly encounter the effects of alcohol use, Indigenous community members in recognition of the historic and systemic inequalities in health and wellness, parents and caregivers who influence youth behavior and well-being, and those with lived experience of alcohol-related harms. So those are the targeted groups that we're hoping to do the majority of the engagement with in town. However, there are some engagement tools that we're leveraging to gain perspectives from across the entire community. So to inform the development of the community alcohol strategy framework in Tofino, we're undertaking a series of engagement and research activities, and those include facilitated community conversations to gather input on alcohol-related concerns and ideas, one-on-one interviews and focus groups with youth, engagement with Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation and the Q&amp Nation, health and social services, tourism industry representatives, and members of the hospitality and business communities. District staff have been working together with the steering committee and the project leads of this project to put together a communication campaign that's going to be launched shortly. So the public engagement work plan is currently underway, and the steering committee has reviewed and approved a community survey. This is planned to be launched as part of the initial sort of comms campaign launch for this project at the end of March break. So the 23rd, that week of the 23rd of March. We're planning on having a District of Tofino page, including it in our usual district communication channels, so social media. There's going to be a survey that's going to be live on Talk Tofino, and then to really gather more outreach with the community. We're also going to be planning potentially some open houses to share information and gather survey data that way, reach out to the seniors group, potentially set up at places like the co-op or other community like events that are going on in town to meet people where they're at, and really just try to get a really good measure of the community's feelings towards alcohol, some of the issues they see with alcohol, some of the benefits they see of alcohol, and just get a really good temperature check of the community to see what their values are and how alcohol can sort of tie into those or not. So next step for this project, September 15th is the final day of our grant for this sort of preliminary engagement and planning process. So we're really going to be doing all of this engagement between now and then. The community engagement is next. At the end of March is when we're really going to launch that survey and launch all of our initial cons. That survey is going to run for a month. And then based on how many results we get, if we decide we want to potentially run it longer, we will. But for now, we're looking at about a month. And then once we get that data, we'll be able to sort of aggregate it, get a sense of potentially the initial thoughts that we're hearing from the community, and go from there in terms of if the community is really tuned in with some of the alcohol related harms that we've been hearing lots about from our health community for a number of years, or if there's a bit more sort of knowledge sharing and a bit of an awareness campaign that might need to happen. So this first survey will be an initial information gathering to get a temperature check on the community. We're going to do a comprehensive review of any policies related to alcohol use within the community, and how the data that we compile fits into those. And then following the engagement, we'll build a local alcohol profile. So using health, safety, and licensing data, review all of the relevant bylaws and zoning, and draw lessons from the effective approaches in similar rural and tourism-based BC communities. And then lastly, so a hopeful final deliverable of this grant project is going to be to develop a strategy framework. So not actually a community alcohol strategy per se, but a bit of a framework based on the engagement that we've heard. And we'll work together to shape the vision, the goals, and policy directions for the strategy, and then share the findings and draft for public input before seeking guidance from council on next steps or endorsement or direction. And then lastly, because this is sort of a new initiative or a newer initiative for BC communities, the community alcohol strategy, we're hoping that we'll be able to create a bit of a summary and a resource package potentially that we can use to inform other communities that might want to kind of follow suit. So that's it for me. I'll open the floor to any questions if council has any.
Question. So it sounds like we're doing some great work there. I'll go to comments then, I guess.
Yeah.
And you're free from question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great, thank you through the chair. I just want to commend the work that the committee has been doing in terms of their engagement in the have a project lead through Island Health, as well as Jamie and the work that they've been doing. And I just want to say that through the work that I do outside of my council work, this is really being looked at in the broader provincial and I would say at the national level. They're very interested in the work that Tofino has done specifically around our municipal alcohol policy and looking at how we've developed further with a community alcohol strategy. We get a lot of your Minister of Health just called me yesterday where she's getting feedback from the work that we're doing here in Tofino around this particular issue. So I really want to thank the work that staff is doing on this because it is a tremendous amount of work that is going on, but the engagement with the community so far has been incredibly positive. They're all very much wanting to be a part and have conversations around it. So thank you.
Thanks. Care to comment or? Okay, Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'm up again next, but I might just run up to the computer and support the coordinator in case you need any help getting the presentation up.
Moving into item 8.3, and this is the Tofino Chamber of Commerce fee for service agreement. And when a date of business report. As far as, yeah.
So my next presentation tonight is on the fee for service agreement between the District of Tofino and the Chamber of Commerce. Today, I'm going to give a little bit of a synopsis on where the expired agreement that expired at the end of 2025 currently was at. And based on some council discussion, where I sort of see us going with the 2026 agreement. So as a bit of a background on the fee for service agreement, I've got my own slides. Between 2002 and 2017, the district did provide the Chamber of Commerce with approximately $20,000 annually under, at the time, what was a funding bylaw. And so this was originally intended to support the visitor center when it operated under the Chamber. And then after Tourism Tofino became administratively separate in 2016, the Chamber could no longer accept those funds for visitor center operations. So this prompted council to consider a new model and repeal the funding bylaw. At that time, staff were directed to investigate a fee-for-service agreement to support the Chamber's broader economic development role. In 2018, the Chamber submitted a proposal that was refined with input from the Community Economic Development Advisory Committee, which was active at the time. And the resulting 5-year agreement, so the 2018 to 2023 agreement, provided a stable municipal funding source to support business development services, community economic initiatives, and annual reporting to council. For a bit of context and legislative authority, so municipalities and regional districts in British Columbia often partner with outside organizations to provide services when they can't deliver their services on their own. And so that can be with nonprofits, it can be with private companies, First Nations, or other public bodies. Section 8.2 of the Community Charter gives municipalities a broad authority to provide any service they deem necessary, either directly or through another organization. The charter defines service very broadly, covering virtually any work carried out by or on behalf of the municipality within its mandate. So fee-for-service agreements let municipalities partner with chambers and other organizations to deliver services efficiently while providing, again, sort of a stable long-term funding to those nonprofits. They can be especially useful for small communities with limited capacity, but staff and council must still ensure that the service is delivered in the most cost-effective and reasonable way. Municipalities can also use fee-for-service agreements to support broader community priorities without defining specific deliverables. So as an overview of the previous agreement, up until the end of 2025, we had a 2-year agreement, 2024 and 2025, that followed after the initial 2018 to 2025 5-year agreement. This again provided up to $20,000 annually to deliver services such as business support, promotion, economic profiling, and business community roundtables. Conditions included that the chamber must spend the funds within the year and report to council each March with financial statements and program results. The agreement clearly outlined responsibilities, accountability measures, and conditions to ensure transparent and effective service delivery. So now that agreement has expired, and so the discussion tonight will be on what proposed changes council would like to see moving forward into the next agreement. And I've provided a bit of a sort of bullet point list, a snapshot of some proposed amendments based on the council discussion that I've heard. And so I don't have an agreement before you today, but based on the discussion and any direction council gives today, I'll return at a future regular council meeting with the draft agreement for review. So to highlight some of the proposed changes, one is to reduce the term of the agreement to 1 year. So this is for just a 2026 agreement expiring at the end of December 2026. And that was in response to the election. And so this is an election year, and that could be potentially a conversation that council wants to new council may want to have in terms of expanding the scope of the service agreement or otherwise changing the scope of the service agreement. So one thing I heard was that potentially council would be interested in just having a 1 year term for now until we come to this again in 2027. I propose to include a purpose and value statement within the fee for service agreement. And so this clarifies within the agreement that the chamber's work must directly advance district priorities and provide measurable outcomes. And then unlike the previous agreement, I propose that in the new agreement, each service area now have prescribed details of what the measurable outcomes are with a dedicated budget allocation. The 2026 draft also expands the chamber's responsibility by adding structured business community education, formal business data collection and reporting, and an emergency communications role. Business roundtables remain within the agreement. However, there was some change proposed, or I proposed some change to the language based on council discussion, where we would just clarify that the district sets the topics of the roundtables with the chamber coordinating the logistics. And then reporting expectations are proposed to be strengthened as well, requiring the chamber to demonstrate one, how it informed businesses, gathered insights, and supported district initiatives throughout the year. So my request for direction today or tonight is to review the proposed terms, and I have them in greater detail here that we can go over. Review the proposed services, and then review the sort of draft budget allocation amounts or anything else that council would like to sort of discuss about the agreement. And the next steps would be I take council's direction or the committee's direction tonight and bring forward a draft agreement based on what I hear today and bring it to a regular council meeting for review. With that, I might open it up to questions and discussion. I do have sort of my notes here that I've taken with greater detail on the specific proposed changes. So I'm happy to sort of get into that if council would like, but I'll let you take it from there.
Okay. Maybe when we get to more discussion, we can go back to slides to help guide us through that. But we'll move to questions. Here, well, you get our hand up first. Okay, sorry.
Thank you through the chair. I like the direction you're going in with specifying different actions and reportable outcomes. Was that made in tandem with feedback from the chamber ED or from those discussions with the ED?
Yeah, thank you for the question through the chair. That was a conversation that we've been having with the chamber ED. So previously it was Tiffany, and now we have a new chamber executive, Graydon. And so I've met with them both a few times, and I know that the CAO has as well. And so, yeah, any service deliverable that we've been contemplating in the draft of this agreement, as well as budget allocation, has been, we've been having conversations with the chamber to ensure that it is relevant and deliverable, and that the budget is, yeah, sort of makes sense for what we're requesting. And so there is some work to be done still based on the conversation tonight on which services maybe the committee wants to pursue or not, based on an overall budgeted amount of $20,000 this year.
Thanks.
My question was very similar. The comment for the question is, I had a great, very encouraging discussion with their new ED, Graydon Clark. And Graydon had a lot of ideas. So that was my question is, has that been fully fleshed out, and has Graydon had a chance to add perhaps even more services or flesh them out a little bit better? That was my question.
I had a question about the round tables. We're looking at maybe a period of 1 year. And I'm not sure where the last round of roundtables ended up. And at one time we had sort of a sectoral approach to that. And I think we went for one or a couple sectors in each funding. And I'm not sure if those roundtables were still happening, or was there a break at some point? So I'm just wondering if we do go for that, will we sort of be picking up where the list left off? Does the list still exist?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I would have to investigate to understand maybe when the most recent roundtables were and what the sector, business sectors were that were included. I know in the previous agreement that just expired, there was a condition in there that the chamber will conduct at least 2 business roundtables annually. I don't have that information for 2025. I know there hasn't been any in the last half of 2025. But I could get that information in terms of when they conducted their last business roundtables and sort of what the business sectors were that were represented. I know the chamber is presenting to council their annual report on March 17th. So they'll have a report out of last year's programs and activities and how they met the conditions of the last year's agreement. But I don't have that information at the top of, and.
I just have one more question. Not sure if it was on there. I didn't see it, but in my discussions over the past couple of years with some of the larger businesses, hotels specifically, is that they have their own emergency preparedness plan, including emergency resources, number of people they can prepare to deal with in case of emergency. And I wonder if that can be, or if it's been discussed with our own emergency coordination team to get that data or share that data, or maybe use the Chamber of Commerce as a conduit to understand emergency preparedness, not just from the district's point of view, but business point of view, visitor point of view. Seems like that would be a potentially an ideal collaboration.
Thank you through the chair. That's a really good, a really good comment. Thank you. I don't currently have that in my notes, so I'll add that. I know I have a provision here for data collection and reporting, and I provided a bit of a short list just based on some council discussion, and then I have a second proposed service area on emergency and priority communication that would be sort of more tailored towards the chamber supporting the district in getting emergency notification and communications out. So thank you. I'll take that note away and see if there is a way to incorporate data collection specific to emergency response and emergency programming within the business community.
Okay, so we just go back to this slide. The 3 points that you were looking for some direction. Down the table and everyone can give their thoughts.
Okay, I'll scroll over to it here. If it is the committee's wish, I could break down what some of those like additional services are that I've proposed, if that would provide clarity, but I'll sort of leave that with you.
Anyone like to start, or should we start at this end?
I feel pretty positive about all the proposed changes and there. It sounds like we're doing a good job of communicating with the new ED and maybe a better working relationship going forward. I appreciate the 1-year term, noting that the next group that sits around this table might want to do something different, and also noting that there are significant gaps in their deliverables of the previous fee for service. So this will be a new opportunity for them to work and have anything to add? I feel that council's voices are really heard in this, and I hope that the chamber also feels that their voices are heard in this when we see the draft come forward.
Mr. Steer?
Through the chair. She said what I was going to say, so great, thank you. I agree, Councillor Thomas, on this. The one thing that I'm really interested in is right at the very beginning, the purpose and value statement. I think having that statement clearly defined is going to be important, and then those services that will really be informed by that, what the purpose and value that we see with our relationship with the chamber. So I think that's a great starting point, and to really flesh that one out in detail, I think will be important.
Yeah, I enjoyed Mayor Law's comments about the emergency communication, and my only comment would be that given how far $20,000 would stretch, data collection reporting could maybe be rolled into community economic profile, if that's not just the precursor to building the profile. And just as far as I'd like to do it all, but I would be surprised if we could get the whole list for $20,000 accomplished. The absolute biggest one for me is business community education and outreach. And from what I've seen with the chamber helping facilitate communications from the district through their own channel, there's more of that, as well as communicating important policy changes and using messaging and education that we can help them source and provide, so that it's not going through several filters and it's coming straight from the source. So.
Thanks, Councillor Sloan.
I feel comfortable with this. I agree with Councillor Thomas's statement.
I have a couple comments. I've already said the emergency preparedness collaboration bit. The other thing I want to say is about the data collection and reporting. And we've seen how transformative having the Tourism Tofino's economic impact of tourism study has been, certainly for population, visitor night. So many people are here on any given day at night. And I think that it occurs to me that, you know, the businesses know exactly how many people are in their buildings to a person a day, and that seems like it would be an easy collection for the chamber to do that would insulate the particular businesses from the district, but it would still allow us to have a very accurate average number for visitors in the quarters. And so I would like to see you know, maybe that data collection delineated a bit more, and I would like to see a more accurate, orderly visitor night population, so that we can keep an eye on who's here and who's using the services. That's it for me.
I agree with the list in general and the comments that have been made. My comment would be on the business roundtables. Those were in the past were kind of designed around different parts of our council had a different strategic plan at that time. And there was some goals around economic diversification and support for different sectors of the business community. Without any strategic goals specific to what we're looking for, the roundtables don't quite make as much sense to me. So my comment on that is that maybe if we're going to edit it, that we don't have same framework in place. So maybe some language that roundtables may be convened from time to time to work on strategic priorities of council, something like that. So that we don't necessarily have to have a roundtable, but maybe we can collaborate by use of roundtables on relevant, when we need relevant input on policy and direction. Something like that. It just doesn't quite make as much sense to me without that strategic priority in place. Not as prescriptive. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay. Councillor Thomas.
I might see the value in having them in there, because I think there's always something that we could be looking for feedback on, especially noting that we're going to be looking at water sources. We have a zoning bylaw rewrite coming up. There's the recreation and parks plan. There's a lot of big things. And I think having that framework in there for a set number might be good, because maybe it means that we as council or future council need to sit down and talk about what we want feedback on more often. And it might push us to be more involved with the business community and think of the things that are.
I think we're saying the same thing. We're articulating it much better.
Just a comment on the roundtables. Is it the roundtables are often, my experience in the past, a way for the business community to ask questions of staff and council. And so they may want to ask, always asking for policy input or direction, or business feedback that the business community asks us to explain our policy or maybe a strategic directive. So keep that in mind.
Anything else anyone would like to add? Like you have enough input?
Thank you. Yeah, I
Next
think
step.
that gives me some good direction for coming back with a draft. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a question period, and I'll go on the secretary again if there's do a call.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Signed up.
I will now make an open call for questions to both members of the public present in the gallery and those participating online. For those in the gallery who wish to speak, please raise your hand. If there's anyone attending online via Zoom that would like to ask a question, you can do so now using the Q&A function. For asking a question, you need to state your name, your address, and the agenda item you are speaking to. I will now do a call. Calling once. Calling twice. Calling 3 times. There are no comments at this time, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. So that brings us to the motion to go to our closed session. And I'll move this from the chair that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to sections 91 F and K of the community charter to discuss matters relating to 90.1 F law enforcement. Disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of an investigation under or enforcement of an enactment. And 91K negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal service that are in their preliminary stages, and that in the view of council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Councilor Thomas, in favor? Carried. And we'll take a 5-minute recess.